Imagine, for just a moment, that you are standing inside this ancient, incredibly heavily fortified stone fortress.
Right.
And outside those walls, stretching literally as far as the eye can see, is a ruthless tyrant.
Yeah.
With an invincible army.
Just waiting to tear the city apart.
Exactly, stone by stone. And you are the leader of this city.
That's a heavy burden.
It really is. Your people are starving. The water is, completely running out. The mathematical reality of your survival has basically dropped to zero.
The walls are closing in.
Yeah, but then the tyrant offers you a way out. A single, incredibly simple deal.
Okay, what's the deal?
He will pack up his entire army. He'll leave your people in peace. All you have to do is hand over your spouse to him.
Wow. Just like that.
That's it. One life in exchange for tens of thousands of lives.
That's brutal.
Right. So do you surrender the person you love most in the world to save all those innocent people? Which, effectively validates the tyrant's extortion.
You're rewarding the monster.
Yeah, exactly. Or do you stand by your absolute principles, refuse the deal entirely, and just watch your entire world burn to the ground to protect your honor?
It is the ultimate Kobayashi Maru.
The ultimate no-win scenario.
Yeah, it's a scenario specifically designed to break the human spirit, honestly, before a single sword is even drawn.
Which is exactly the kind of impossible choice we are unpacking today. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
I am incredibly glad you are with us listening right now because we are navigating a landscape of human conflict today that is just terrifyingly asymmetrical.
It really is. We are looking at the sweeping, super high-stakes universe presented in the transcript of the 2026 epic Durandar II: The Revenge.
But our mission today is not just to recap a movie narrative.
No, not at all.
We are treating the world within this specific source material as our actual factual reality for the next hour.
Right, we're taking it as historical fact for the sake of the analysis.
Exactly. We are going to dissect the anatomy of an ideological war.
Because it's a look at what happens when a society built entirely on rigid, unyielding moral codes just collides head-on with an entity that has absolutely zero rules.
A complete moral vacuum.
Yes, exactly. A collision between an immovable ethical wall and a moral void.
So to really grasp the mechanics of this, we have to engage with their reality completely on their terms, right?
We have to. We really can't view their decisions through the lens of, modern, comfortable hindsight.
Right, sitting in our nice air-conditioned room.
Exactly. We have to analyze the sociological and psychological frameworks that make these extreme decisions not just logical to the characters, but utterly inevitable.
So keep that opening scenario in the back of your mind as we go. Think about your own unwavering moral principles.
So lines you just wouldn't cross.
Yeah, the absolute core rules of who you are, in your career, in relationships, whatever. What happens when you pit those against an opponent who views your morality as a weakness?
Not just a weakness, but a predictable, exploitable vulnerability.
Right, so if the only way to survive is to abandon your rulebook and become the monster you're fighting, do you change your rules? Or do you accept destruction?
That is the central, agonizing tension we are about to pull apart.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the vulnerability of the fortress, we first have to really understand the specific pathology of the predator trying to get inside.
We're going to start with the Tyrant.
Yes, the terrifying rise of this incredibly ambitious tyrant. We are starting our journey right in the power center of Delhi.
With the introduction of Alauddin Khilji.
And the world built around this man is just suffocating. I mean, there is no sunlight in his political sphere.
It's entirely composed of conspiracies, shadows, paranoia. The text makes it clear right away.
Yeah, his wars aren't fought from the front lines with honor. They are fought from the shadows with daggers.
Which immediately establishes a very specific psychological profile for him.
Right, he's not a normal king.
No. You are not dealing with a straightforward military tactician here. You are dealing with an individual who exhibits classic dark triad traits.
Which are narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, right?
Spot on. Severe narcissism, profound Machiavellianism, and absolute psychopathy. In his ecosystem, genuine human connection simply does not exist.
Everyone is just a piece on the board.
Exactly. Every interaction is an assessment of leverage. Every person is either a threat to be neutralized or a tool to be utilized.
And we see that perfectly illustrated literally the moment we meet him. He's given a gift by his uncle.
Who's also his father-in-law, right? Alauddin Khilji, the reigning sultan.
Right, this sultan. And he brings Alauddin the slave named Malik Kafur. And the sultan describes Kafur as a cheetah hidden in a fox's skin.
It's a very evocative description.
It is. And the sultan thinks he is playing a really smart political game here. He's offering this dangerous asset to cement his nephew's loyalty.
He's trying to bring Alauddin back to heel, basically, because Alauddin just conducted this totally unauthorized military raid.
Right, so it's a bribe.
Yeah,
But the sultan fundamentally misunderstands the creature he's dealing with.
completely. The sultan believes he's operating within a traditional hierarchy, where a gift implies debt, and subordination.
But Alauddin operates totally outside that hierarchy.
He immediately uses the gift to completely invert the power dynamic in the room.
It's wild. He tests Kafur instantly. He just looks at him and asks, "What can you do for me?"
And Kafur, playing the perfect subservient tool, says, "Anything, even give my life."
But Alauddin doesn't want his life. He just points directly at his uncle's two most loyal advisors.
The viziers, who are standing right there in the throne room.
Yeah, right in front of the sultan. And Alauddin says to Kafur, "Can you take their lives?"
It is a breathtaking escalation. Just an insane power move.
The sultan initially thinks it's a joke, right? He actually pleads, like, "These are my viziers, stop joking."
Because in a normal society, you do not casually order the assassination of a head of state's cabinet members to his face.
You just don't do that. But Kafur does not hesitate.
He just executes them. Right there.
It's not a joke at all. It is a calculated demonstration of absolute sociopathic authority.
Alauddin is broadcasting a very clear message to his uncle in that moment.
What's the message?
Basically, he's saying, your power is a fragile illusion maintained by a social contract. My power is absolute because I am willing to do the unthinkable without a fraction of a second's hesitation.
Wow. It reminds me of like a modern, highly aggressive corporate hostile takeover.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, but stripped of all the legal veneer and drenched in actual blood. Imagine a brilliant, utterly ruthless protege who has been groomed by a legacy CEO.
Okay, I see where you're going.
The CEO thinks they have an understanding, but instead of waiting for a succession plan, the protege walks into a board meeting and just violently dismantles the board of directors right in front of the CEO.
And then justifies it by claiming the company's survival requires an immediate hostile pivot.
Exactly. That is exactly what happens.
It is a remarkably accurate framework, because Alauddin does not stop with the board of directors.
Nope. He immediately proceeds to murder the CEO.
Right, he assassinates his own uncle, the Sultan, to seize the throne.
His uncle and his father-in-law, which is just so dark.
What's fascinating here is not just the murder itself, but how Alauddin internalizes and justifies it.
Yeah, he doesn't feel bad about it at all.
Not even a little. When he's confronted by a family member about the historical weight of assassinating his own blood and his sovereign, he doesn't express remorse.
He doesn't even frame it as like an unfortunate necessity.
No, his justification is chillingly bureaucratic.
He says history won't call it murder. He says it will call it the demand of the times, Waktatkaza.
Waktakatas. He argues that the empire was stagnating. It needed new blood.
New thinking, aggressive expansion to keep the populace satisfied.
He essentially frames his high treason and familial slaughter as a grim public service.
Like he's the savior willing to get his hands dirty for the macroeconomic good of the empire. It's twisted.
It reveals the absolute core of his pathology. He views loyalty, tradition, and familial bonds as entirely obsolete concepts.
They're just inefficiencies to him.
Look at his behavior immediately following the usurpation. He is literally parading the crown around in front of his wife.
While she is actively mourning the fact that he just murdered her father.
Right, and he tells her the crown is inherently unfaithful because it changes heads.
Yeah, it sat on her father's head yesterday, and today it sits on his. It's just a complete chilling detachment.
He has no sense of the emotional, historical, or moral weight of leadership.
To him, the crown is not a symbol of duty or, a covenant with the people. It's just a shiny piece of metal.
It is a physical manifestation of dominance. He declares his intention to become the second Alexander Sikandar Sani.
His entire worldview is predicated on this absolute conviction that every rare, precious thing in the world inherently belongs to him.
Simply because he possesses the sheer willpower to take it.
Exactly. He is driven by an insatiable hunger for monopolies.
He doesn't merely want wealth to spend it. He wants to hoard the very concept of the exceptional.
Whether it's a rare gem, a military talent like Malik Kafur, or a vast territory, he just has to own it.
He has to own it to validate his own supremacy, But there is a fatal flaw in this psychology.
What's that?
An insatiable hunger, by definition, can never be satisfied.
Right.
The moment he acquires a monopoly, it loses its value to him, and the paranoia sets in again.
He has to constantly scan the horizon for the next conquest just to maintain his internal equilibrium. So his terrifying political machinery is fully operational in Delhi. He's consolidated power through terror.
And now he's actively seeking his next obsession.
But to find the catalyst for the geopolitical nightmare to come, we actually have to look far away from Delhi.
We have to travel across the ocean.
Yeah, to a lush, deeply serene forest in a region called Singal. The narrative shifts us into a world that is diametrically opposed to the Khilji dynasty.
It's a brilliant contrast. We transition from an environment defined entirely by violent acquisition to an environment defined by serendipity.
Natural order and inherent value rather than extracted value.
Exactly. And in this serene landscape, we experience the meeting between Maharawal Ratan Singh, the king of Chittor.
Which is a fortress state in the Mewar region.
Right, and he meets Princess Padmavati of Singal.
And Ratan Singh, he has undertaken this massive journey specifically to hunt for rare pearls.
He's wandering through this dense forest, seeking a physical commodity.
A treasure to bring back. But instead of finding a pearl, he accidentally gets struck by an arrow.
Fired by Padmavati, who is out hunting a deer.
Talk about a meet cute. But the symbolism here is incredibly dense, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ratan Singh arrives with a mindset of acquisition, albeit a peaceful one.
He's looking for a rare object.
But he is physically pierced, wounded by the embodiment of a completely different paradigm of value.
Padmavati isn't a passive treasure waiting to be mined.
No, she is active. She is the hunter. She initiates the contact.
Even if it's an accident, she represents this dynamic, untamable force of nature.
And they have this beautifully layered interaction after she shoots him.
Her father, the king of Singal, is profoundly apologetic. I mean, his daughter just shot a visiting monarch.
Which is usually a diplomatic disaster.
Right. But Ratan Singh is entirely captivated. He just waves off the injury.
He essentially tells the king, I traveled across the world looking for mere pearls, but I found something infinitely more precious.
He isn't looking at her as property. He recognizes a profound equal force in her.
So they marry, and he brings her back across the world to his fortress kingdom of Chittor as his queen.
And the arrival in Chittor really establishes the ideological foundation that will soon be tested.
Chittor is presented as the total antithesis of Delhi.
Delhi is fluid, right? A guy can be a slave one day and second in command the next.
Or a sultan one day and a corpse the next.
Yeah.
All based on raw power.
But Chittor is static. It's deeply rooted in centuries of ancestral honor.
Rigid societal roles and a strict adherence to dharma, or righteous duty. Stability is prized over ambition.
But even inside an impenetrable fortress built on righteous duty, a society can rot from the inside out.
The threat to Chittor doesn't begin with an invading army. It begins with an insider.
Right. We are introduced to the royal priest and spiritual advisor, Raghav Chetan.
In this society, this man is supposed to be a pillar of morality.
We're told he is the one who instructed Ratan Singh on the spiritual responsibilities of the throne. He is the ultimate trusted insider.
But he commits a massive, unforgivable violation.
He is discovered hiding, actively spying on the king and queen during their most intimate, private moments in their chambers.
Which is just a horrific betrayal.
I have to pause here because this is where my modern sensibilities completely clashed with the narrative.
It is a frustrating moment for a modern audience, definitely.
Ratan Singh catches him in the act, and he slashes him with a dagger, not to kill him, but to draw blood.
To leave undeniable physical evidence on the floor that the priest was exactly where he wasn't supposed to be.
Right. It is a profound, treasonous betrayal by a man who holds the keys to the kingdom's deepest secrets. It's espionage and voyeurism rolled into one.
And how does Ratan Singh respond?
He banishes him. He strips him of his title, puts him in a boat, and tells him to leave the kingdom.
Which is incredibly frustrating from a tactical standpoint.
It is absolute strategic insanity. Why would you let a humiliated, deeply resentful man who intimately knows your fortress's architecture, your state secrets, just walk away?
He knows everything.
He has him dead to rights. He could eliminate a massive security threat with one swing of a sword. Why prioritize banishment over execution?
To understand this, we really have to look at the sociology of Rajput codes.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's the concept of Brahmahatya, the sin of killing a Brahmin priest.
So he literally can't kill him because of his job title.
Basically.
Yeah.
Ratan Singh explicitly states his reasoning. He says, if I wanted, I could crush your head right now. But killing a Brahmin is against our principles.
Wow.
For Ratan Singh, morality is not a sliding scale based on convenience or even national security. It is absolute.
To kill a priest would be to fundamentally pollute his own soul.
And by extension, the spiritual legitimacy of his throne.
So he is prioritizing his internal moral purity over the practical physical security of thousands of his citizens.
He believes the social death of banishment, the humiliation of being cast out, will be punishment enough.
This is the fascinating paradox of highly codified societies, right? Their strict adherence to honor is what creates their internal cohesion.
Yes, why the citizens of Chittor revere him.
Yeah.
But it is undeniably their greatest tactical vulnerability.
Ratan Singh's absolute refusal to compromise his honor blinds him to the very real, pragmatic consequences of his actions.
By exiling Raghav Chetan rather than executing him, Ratan Singh doesn't solve a problem, he weaponizes it.
He creates a highly intelligent, deeply motivated enemy who now possesses the exact intelligence needed to destroy Chittor.
It's a devastating irony. His strict morality literally manufactures the instrument of his doom.
Have you ever done that? Like, let someone off the hook in a professional setting because you wanted to take the high road.
Oh, sure, because it aligned with your principles.
Yeah, only to have that person turn around and use the grace you gave them to completely undermine you later.
It happens all the time. But here, it's on a geopolitical scale.
Because where does a disgraced, banished man with a massive grievance against a righteous king go?
He doesn't seek out another honorable court.
No, he seeks out the most devastating blunt instrument he can find. He goes straight to the moral vacuum. He goes to Alauddin Khilji.
He seeks out the apex predator, knowing exactly which psychological buttons to push to direct that predator toward his former master.
Which brings us to an absolute masterclass in psychological manipulation.
Raghav Chetan manages to get an audience with Alauddin in Delhi.
And Alauddin is just sitting there, casually marveling at a bloody feather he just placed on his crown.
Which paints a pretty clear picture of his daily mindset.
Totally. Raghav is a smart man. He knows he cannot just walk in, hand over the blueprints to Chittor and say, "Please avenge my honor."
Alauddin doesn't care about a priest's honor.
And Alauddin doesn't need to conquer Chittor just for the sake of rocks and dirt. He already has a massive empire.
So to mobilize Alauddin's massive army, Raghav has to bypass strategy entirely and appeal directly to pathology.
Raghav understands that Alauddin is fundamentally driven by a narcissistic void.
He needs to possess the unpossessable to feel complete.
So Raghav doesn't pitch a military campaign, he sells a mythological dream.
He describes Queen Padmavati not merely as a beautiful monarch, he elevates her to an almost supernatural status.
He invokes the legend of the Philosopher's Stone, the Prabhas.
A mythical alchemical stone that instantly turns base metal into pure gold.
Raghav literally looks at the most powerful man in the world and says, if you touch her, your entire existence will become golden.
She is the ultimate key to your destiny.
If you possess her, you truly possess the world. But if she exists out there and you do not have her, then your entire empire, your crown, they're all utterly worthless.
It is an incredibly dangerous, brilliant manipulation of a fragile ego.
Raghav weaponizes Alauddin's core insecurity.
Because Alauddin does not fall in love with Padmavati. He's never even seen her.
He becomes obsessed with the idea of her.
Raghav convinces him that her existence in the hands of a lesser king diminishes Alauddin's status as the ultimate conqueror.
She becomes the ultimate symbol of supreme power, the one monopoly he does not yet control.
For a man who calls himself the second Alexander, knowing there's a prize he does not own is a psychological torment he just cannot endure.
And that carefully implanted obsession ignites a catastrophe.
Alauddin mobilizes his colossal Delhi army.
And he marches them across the country to the seemingly impregnable fortress of Chittor. We move from psychological manipulation right into the gritty, grueling reality of medieval siege warfare.
Alauddin arrives, assesses the massive stone walls built into a high plateau, and realizes a direct infantry assault would be suicide.
So he decides to park his massive army right outside the gates, and then the waiting begins.
The mechanics of a medieval siege are fundamentally about attrition.
Right. The fortress is designed to withstand direct violence.
So Alauddin attacks its logistics. He cuts off all external supply lines.
No grain carts can enter. No water can be sourced from the surrounding rivers.
He intends to use time, heat, and starvation to slowly crush the populace until the king is forced to submit.
It is a slow, agonizing suffocation of an entire society.
Months drag on. The text paints a visceral picture of the blistering heat.
And here we see an incredible divergence in how the two different ideologies handle the pressure of attrition.
Down below, in the dust and the heat, Alauddin's massive army is breaking.
They are starving. An army that size strips the surrounding land bare very quickly.
Their tents are catching fire from covert Rajput sabotage. They are dying of thirst.
The soldiers are on the verge of open mutiny, literally begging to return to Delhi.
The morale of an aggressor is remarkably brittle when the campaign stalls out like that.
Because Alauddin's men are motivated by the promise of quick plunder.
Plunder and fear of their sultan. When the plunder doesn't materialize and the suffering outweighs the fear, the foundation crumbles.
But up on the plateau, inside the besieged, starving walls of Chittor, King Ratan Singh executes a brilliant piece of psychological warfare.
He knows his grain silos are nearly empty. He knows his people are suffering just as much.
But instead of rationing quietly in the dark, he orders the entire kingdom to celebrate the festival of Diwali with unprecedented, massive fanfare.
They light thousands of lamps across the fort walls. They beat war drums. They sing.
They project an image of absolute joyous abundance.
It is a profound assertion of cultural resilience. The Rajputs are drawing deep strength from their traditions,
using their cultural identity as a shield against despair.
But strategically, it is a weapon aimed directly at the minds of the besieging army. It is designed to induce cognitive dissonance in Alauddin's ranks.
It's like modern economic sanctions, right? Where the sanctioned country throws a massive televised military parade just to show the world they aren't hurting.
Very similar. Down in the dirt, Alauddin's soldiers are looking up at this blazing fortress thinking, "We are dying of dysentery and starvation for our sultan's weird personal obsession, while they are up there feasting and partying."
This is pointless. Ratan Singh successfully shatters the enemy's spirit by refusing to let them see him bleed.
However, psychological victories cannot alter mathematical realities indefinitely.
You can project abundance, but you cannot eat light.
Eventually, the grain silos do run completely dry. The tactical situation becomes untenable for both sides.
Alauddin is facing a mutiny, and Ratan Singh is facing mass starvation. It's a complete stalemate.
Which means the paradigm has to shift.
When brute force fails, and the waiting game leads to mutiny, Alauddin realizes he has to pivot.
He abandons conventional military strategy and leans entirely into his true, terrifying specialty.
Absolute shameless deception. He realizes he cannot batter down Ratan Singh's stone walls, but he might just be able to slip right through Ratan Singh's moral codes.
This transition marks the escalation from a physical conflict into a devastating ideological trap.
We reach the Festival of Holi. Alauddin sends a white flag of truce up the hill to the fort.
And his proposition is just audacious.
He says, "Listen, the siege has failed. My army is tired. I am prepared to lift the siege and march my entire force back to Delhi.
But before I leave, as a final gesture of diplomatic goodwill between kings, I simply want to come inside your fort, completely alone and unarmed, to experience Chittor's legendary hospitality as your guest."
This is a breathtakingly cynical manipulation of cultural norms.
He is weaponizing the ancient Rajput code of Atiti Devo Bhava,
which is the profound belief that a guest in your home is equivalent to God.
and must be treated with absolute reverence and protection.
Okay, we really need to pause and find a modern equivalent for this, because it is staggering.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
This isn't just inviting an enemy to a peace summit. This is like a massive corporation facing a relentless, state-sponsored cyber attack from a known syndicate. And the syndicate suddenly pauses the attack, sends an email saying, "We give up, but can our lead hacker just come into your server room, unplug from the internet, just to admire your hardware?"
You say yes, because your company policy says always welcome visitors.
It is literal insanity. And Ratan Singh's advisors know it. The military commander, Gora Singh, explicitly begs the king to refuse.
He warns him that this is a fatal trap. He reminds him that mythological demons often disguise themselves as holy men to gain entry.
The advisors are operating on empirical data. Alauddin is a documented butcher who murdered his own family for power. He has zero credibility.
Ratan Singh, however, is operating purely on his internal moral compass.
He reasons that he cannot refuse an unarmed man who comes under a flag of truce seeking hospitality.
Because doing so would violate his fundamental duty as a Rajput host. If he turns away a guest out of fear, he has already lost his honor.
Which to him is worse than losing the war.
Exactly. So, defying all military logic, Ratan Singh accepts.
The gates open. Alauddin Khilji, the apex predator, walks into the lion's den, alone and unarmed.
and they sit down to play chess.
The symbolism is so heavy there. The moral absolutist and the moral vacuum, face to face, moving pieces on a board.
Alauddin spends the game making veiled threats, constantly hinting at his lingering desire for Padmavati.
He's testing the boundaries, while Ratan Singh firmly, politely enforces the rules of engagement.
But the true genius of Alauddin's trap is that it is not designed to spring inside the fort.
No, Alauddin is fully aware that he is perfectly safe inside Chittor precisely because of Ratan Singh's honor.
He knows Ratan Singh will protect an unarmed guest with his life.
The trap is designed to spring the moment the obligation of hospitality technically ends.
The visit concludes. Alauddin prepares to leave.
And Ratan Singh, fulfilling the absolute, ultimate, meticulous duty of a gracious host, decides to walk his guest out.
He walks him down from the inner sanctum, past the heavy iron gate.
Out of the fortress entirely, to see him off safely to his camp.
And the absolute fraction of a second, Ratan Singh steps outside his own fortress walls.
Away from the protection of his guards. Alauddin's hidden forces, who, surprise, surprise, did not actually pack up and leave spring from the shadows and capture the king.
This sequence forces us to ask perhaps the most critical question of this entire analysis.
Does this catastrophic failure make Ratan Singh a fool?
The modern pragmatic listener might immediately conclude that, yes, he was hopelessly naive.
He played by the rules against a man who burns rule books for warmth. I certainly thought that. When I first processed this sequence, I thought Ratan Singh was an idiot who doomed his entire kingdom out of sheer stubbornness.
But the narrative framework insists we look deeper. Consider the dialogue just before Ratan Singh is captured.
While Alauddin is still inside the fort, Ratan Singh's advisors urge him to just execute the tyrant right there in the courtyard.
They say, we have him surrounded. Cut off his head, end the war, change history today.
And Ratan Singh refuses. He says, I cannot strike an unarmed guest. History can change its pages, but Rajputs do not change their principles.
And we have to contrast that with Alauddin's philosophy. Later, when Ratan Singh is chained in a dungeon, he tells Alauddin that history will write his actions in black ink.
That he will be remembered forever as a treacherous, dishonorable villain.
And Alauddin just laughs. He says, history is not just written on paper.
Alauddin is articulating the brutal reality of power politics. History is written by the victors.
By the sword. By the ones who survive to dictate the narrative. He does not care about the moral judgment of future generations.
He cares about tangible results in the present.
The narrative is not framing Ratan Singh as a fool. It is elevating him to an ideological martyr.
He actively chose to lose his physical freedom rather than lose his soul by violating his sacred code.
It is the ultimate tragedy of asymmetrical warfare. The rigid, honorable rules of the Rajput men have completely spectacularly failed against an enemy who views those very rules as convenient levers to pull.
So the king is in chains. He's being dragged back to the dungeons of Delhi.
The Rajput army is paralyzed, leaderless, and trapped inside their walls.
The traditional male-dominated structures of power, diplomacy, and military strategy in Chittor have been completely outmaneuvered and dismantled.
It is a moment of suffocating despair. But this is exactly where the narrative executes a brilliant pivot.
The men's rulebook failed. It is now entirely up to the queen to rewrite the rules of engagement.
This transition is where the story shifts from a somber tragedy of honor into a phenomenal masterclass of strategic brilliance and psychological judo.
Alauddin, back in his camp, sends his ransom demand up to the fort.
It's blunt and horrifying.
Send me Queen Padmavati, and I will release King Ratan Singh.
Alauddin believes he has achieved checkmate. He has engineered a scenario where Chittor's moral codes offer no escape.
He fundamentally misunderstands the sociological depth of the people he's trying to break.
He assumes they have only two predictable responses. Either they will surrender the queen to save their beloved king, submitting to humiliation.
Or they will stubbornly refuse, allowing their king to be executed, which leaves the kingdom fractured and easy to conquer militarily.
He expects them to behave like conventional, demoralized victims.
But Padmavati refuses to play either of the hands he dealt her. She writes back a response that stuns everyone.
She says, yes, I agree to the terms.
She actually agrees to travel to Delhi and surrender herself to be his queen. But she attaches conditions.
She meticulously details her demands. She states that she is a queen and she must arrive with the dignity and protocol of her station.
She requires 800 enclosed palanquins, those large curtained carriages carried by men to transport her and her 800 royal maids.
And as a final demand before she departs, she requires the severed head of the traitor, the priest Raghav Chetan.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We must analyze the acute psychological warfare embedded in these demands.
Padmavati is not negotiating from a position of weakness. She is actively feeding Alauddin's colossal ego.
By demanding royal protocol and 800 maids, she's playing the precise role he wants her to play.
The haughty, defeated queen who is reluctantly accepting her subjugation but clinging to her vanity.
She is making him believe that his sheer dominance has completely broken Chittor's spirit.
And Alauddin, who is so entirely blinded by his obsession and his desperate need for this philosopher's stone.
He swallows the hook completely. He is so eager for the prize that he agrees to let 800 completely enclosed, uninspected palanquins walk right through the gates of his heavily fortified military encampment.
He even executes Raghav Chetan, his own intelligence asset, who handed him Chittor on a platter just to appease her vanity.
It is a catastrophic strategic error born entirely of hubris.
He sacrifices basic military security for the intoxicating illusion of total, unchallenged dominance.
So the day arrives. The procession of 800 palanquins travels the long road to Delhi. They pass through the massive gates of Alauddin's camp.
Alauddin is practically vibrating with anticipation. He has arranged a grand reception. He thinks he has finally won the ultimate monopoly.
But when the cretins of those 800 palanquins are drawn back, they are not filled with frightened royal maids.
They are packed with Chittor's fiercest, most lethal Rajput warriors, armed to the teeth.
Led by the legendary commanders Gora and Badal, the men carrying the palanquins throw off their robes, revealing armor.
It is a phenomenal violent reversal. Padmavati has engineered a massive medieval heist right under the nose of the most paranoid tyrant on the continent.
She brilliantly used Alauddin's own signature tactic against him.
Alauddin used a false flag of diplomatic truce, the Trojan guest, to capture Ratan Singh.
Padmavati uses a literal Trojan horse, the palanquins, to infiltrate the impregnable heart of his camp.
But there is a massive, crucial ideological distinction between what Alauddin did and what Padmavati did, isn't there?
I can definitely hear someone arguing, well, she lied and used deception too, so she's no better than him.
That is a vital distinction to make. Alauddin utilized deception to violate a universally sacred trust, the laws of hospitality.
Right, to achieve a fundamentally immoral goal, the theft of a sovereign's kingdom and wife.
Padmavati utilizes deception to exploit an inherently immoral, extortionate demand, ransom, and forced subjugation.
For a fundamentally righteous cause, the liberation of a wrongfully imprisoned hostage.
She proves that you can deploy strategic cunning and asymmetrical tactics without compromising the ultimate moral objective of your society.
It is the ultimate humiliation for the tyrant. The man who believed his sheer willpower could buy, manipulate, or conquer absolutely anyone was completely outsmarted by the very prize he was trying to claim.
He reduced her to an object to be acquired, and that object turned out to be the strategic mastermind of his greatest military and personal embarrassment.
The confrontation that erupts from the palanquins is pure, unadulterated chaos. The Rajput warriors carve a bloody path through the bewildered Delhi guards.
They locate Ratan Singh's dungeon and shatter his chains.
And in the chaotic, violent scramble to escape the camp, King Ratan Singh suddenly finds himself face to face with Alauddin Khilji.
Yes, this is the moment.
Ratan Singh has grabbed a sword. Alauddin, caught completely off guard by the ambush, has taken an arrow to the shoulder.
He's wounded, bleeding heavily, and completely unarmed. The tyrant is cornered.
Ratan Singh has the tip of his sword at the throat of the man who murdered his own uncle, laid siege to Chittor, starved its people, and tried to steal his wife.
This is the moment Ratan Singh can end the war, decapitate the empire, and walk away. And what does he do?
He stays true to his unwavering code. Ratan Singh looks at the bleeding tyrant and says, "A Rajput does not strike an unarmed, injured man."
He refuses to deliver the killing blow.
He tells Alauddin, "When your wounds heal and you are fit to hold a sword, meet me on the battlefield." He lowers his weapon, turns his back on the most dangerous man in the world, and escapes with his men back to Chittor.
It is maddening. As a listener, you want the catharsis of the villain's death.
But it is incredibly consistent character work. Ratan Singh is making a profound ideological statement.
He's telling Alauddin, "You captured me by breaking every rule of human decency, but I will not secure my freedom by breaking mine. My integrity, my soul, is worth more to me than your death."
But I have to ask, What does that do to a man like Alauddin?
We must analyze the profound psychological devastation this inflicts on Alauddin. This is not a moment of relief for the tyrant. It is an agonizing psychic injury.
His entire identity is built on the premise that he is the apex predator, the supreme conqueror.
In the span of an hour, he was completely outsmarted strategically by a woman which shatters his deeply ingrained misogynistic worldview.
And then he was physically spared out of pity by a man he considers a soft, moralizing inferior.
Exactly. For a narcissist whose reality is entirely dependent on dominance, being shown mercy is a fate significantly worse than death. It proves he is vulnerable.
The narrative even highlights that his own wife, whom he had callously imprisoned, openly mocks him after the escape, laughing that his grand delusions have been ruined.
This multifaceted total humiliation pushes Alauddin's obsession completely over the edge into pure, unadulterated madness.
The political maneuvering is over, the chess games are finished, the final apocalyptic showdown is now inevitable.
Which brings us to the harrowing, devastating final act of this narrative.
Alauddin takes time to heal his physical wounds, but his psychological wounds fester. He regroups, and he marches back to Chittor.
But this time, the dynamics have fundamentally changed. There are no white flags. There are no sieges meant to slowly wait them out.
He brings a military force so overwhelmingly massive, equipped with siege engines and sheer numbers, that it simply cannot be repelled by stone walls or clever tactics.
The tone of the narrative here shifts dramatically. The strategic tension evaporates, replaced by a profound, suffocating sense of inevitable tragedy.
The people of Chittor look over their walls and realize the grim mathematical reality. The physical battle is utterly irrevocably lost. The fortress will fall.
We see the response of the society split into two distinct, incredibly powerful core events.
One defining the men's response and one defining the women's. Let's look at the warriors first. The men prepare by donning the saffron robes. This is a deeply significant cultural practice known as Caesarea.
To understand Caesarea, we must understand the sociology of a martial culture facing annihilation.
When Rajput warriors put on the saffron robes, they are not dressing for a battle they have any hope of winning.
They are dressing for their own funerals.
It is a collective acknowledgement that physical victory is impossible, but physical surrender is spiritually unacceptable.
They are making a conscious decision to ride out of the gates and fight to the absolute death, seeking to inflict maximum casualties on the enemy before they fall,
thereby preserving their honor and securing a good death. King Ratan Singh leads his men out of the fortress gates one last time, charging headlong into Alauddin's massive army.
He goes to seek that final battlefield duel he promised Alauddin when he spared his life.
He knows he is riding to his death, but he retains the agency of choosing how he dies. He dies fighting on his feet, unyielding.
But while the men ride out to claim their honorable deaths on the battlefield, the truly chilling, ideologically profound climax of this narrative unfolds inside the fortress walls.
Orchestrated entirely by Queen Padmavati, this is the sequence that defines the entire deep dive.
Padmavati stands inside the fort. She hears the battle raging outside. She knows the walls will inevitably be breached.
She knows her husband is dying. She knows the physical kingdom of Chittor is about to be wiped off the map.
Alauddin is going to break through those heavy wooden doors, and he expects to finally, after all the blood and humiliation, claim his ultimate prize.
He expects to find her trembling, defeated, waiting to be subjugated, and dragged back to his harem as a trophy of his supremacy.
She understands the pathology of her enemy perfectly. As we established, Alauddin does not want her out of love.
He wants to possess her physical existence to validate his own monstrous ego. He wants to own the Philosopher's Stone.
So she makes her final countermove, and it is a move of unimaginable, horrifying sacrifice.
She gathers all the women of the fort, the queens, the wives, the daughters, and she declares that they will commit Jauhar, the act of mass self-immolation.
They begin building a massive, towering pyre in the central courtyard of the fort.
It is absolutely vital that we analyze exactly how the narrative framework presents this horrific event.
It does not frame Jauhar as a tragic, desperate suicide born of fear or weakness. It does not frame it as yielding to the enemy.
There is a specific, crucial piece of dialogue that recontextualizes the entire act.
Padmavati stands before the women and tells them Rajput Bengals have as much power as Rajput swords.
That line is staggering. Rajput Bengals have as much power as Rajput swords.
It is a profound, radical equalization of agency in a patriarchal society.
The men are outside using their swords to deny the enemy a physical victory of subjugation.
Padmavati is declaring that the women, utilizing the only tools of agency left to them in the face of absolute, inevitable violation, will wield an equal, devastating power.
Jauhar is framed as a scorched earth policy applied to the self. It is the ultimate absolute act of defiance.
She is essentially sending a final, unbreakable message to Alauddin.
You wanted to conquer me. You destroyed my kingdom, slaughtered my people, and killed my husband just to own my body. So I will destroy the very prize you seek. I will turn the philosopher's stone to ash before I ever let you touch it.
It is a terrifying, awe-inspiring reclamation of control in a situation where they mathematically have zero power left.
She ensures that even if he breaks down every wall, kills every soldier, and burns the city to the ground, his hands will never, ever touch even her shadow.
She permanently denies him the psychological victory that was the entire foundational motivation for his apocalyptic war.
And the climax of the narrative plays this out with devastating visual poetry.
Alauddin, bloodied, exhausted, but victorious on the battlefield, having defeated Ratan Singh, rushes wildly into the fort.
He ignores the plunder. He runs frantically through the stone corridors, his obsession driving him forward.
Desperate to finally reach the inner courtyard where he expects to find Padmavati.
He breaks down the final set of doors, and the heat hits him. He doesn't find a trembling queen.
He finds a massive, roaring inferno. He finds a courtyard filled with ashes.
The woman he destroyed a kingdom to possess has literally vanished into smoke.
The narrative ends with the tyrant falling to his knees, screaming in agony, grasping desperately at handfuls of burning ash that slip through his fingers.
So what does this all mean? Which brings us to the ultimate synthesizing question of our entire exploration today.
The physical events of the narrative are undeniable. The Kingdom of Chittor is a smoking ruin. The king is dead. The queen and the women are dead.
Alauddin Khilji stands amidst the rubble, breathing the smoke, the undisputed physical conqueror of the geographic space.
But who actually won?
If you pull out a map and look at the territory, Alauddin won. He took the land. His physical dominance completely, utterly destroyed the physical kingdom of his enemy.
Yet the narrative explicitly concludes with a voiceover that presents a fascinating, haunting paradox.
It states unequivocally that Padmavati's Jauhar was Alauddin's biggest defeat and Chittor's biggest victory.
And that paradox is what we need to wrestle with as we close.
Because you and I live in a modern world that is utterly obsessed with visible, tangible metrics of winning.
We are conditioned to define success by wealth accumulation, by climbing power structures, by conquering the competition.
Increasing market share, getting the promotion at any cost. We are taught that the person left standing on top of the pile is the winner, period.
But this narrative aggressively challenges that superficial framework. It demands that we separate the physical outcome from the ideological outcome.
Alauddin won the Battle of Swords, but he utterly, catastrophically lost the Battle of Wills.
He sacrificed his humanity, depleted his empire's resources, and murdered his own family for a singular goal he never achieved. He was left with a handful of ash.
Ratan Singh and Padmavati lost their kingdom and their lives, but they died with their core principles entirely, pristinely intact. They never, for a single moment, compromised who they were.
Which turns the focus directly back to you listening right now.
It forces a really uncomfortable, vital introspection. What are your non-negotiables?
What are the core principles that you hold so tightly that you would genuinely rather suffer a massive material loss than compromise them?
A lost job, a broken relationship, a financial hit. Because if you choose to play by the rules of an alum,
if you manipulate, deceive, backstab, and destroy just to acquire the prize at the end of the day.
If you win the board but lose your soul in the process, is it actually a victory? Or are you just standing alone in a ruined room holding a fistful of ashes and desperately calling it a crown?
And that leads to a final, lingering thought for you to consider long after this deep dive ends. We spend our lives deeply, sometimes frantically, concerned with our legacy.
We tend to think of legacy as the tangible, heavy things we leave behind, the monuments we build, the empires we conquer, the wealth we amass.
We want to be remembered for the space we occupied and the things we acquired. But perhaps this story suggests a fundamentally different metric for immortality.
Perhaps true legacy isn't found in what we manage to accumulate or conquer.
Perhaps true immortality is found in the things we absolutely, stubbornly refuse to surrender. Because when the fires eventually fade, when the monuments crumble, and the history books are written and rewritten by the victors,
the absolute, unyielding ashes of defiance might just outlast the grandest, most blood-soaked crowns. Think about that the next time you are faced with a choice between a fast, easy win and a hard, costly principle.
It's been an intense journey.
I want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Dhurandhar 2. It has been a heavy, profound, and I hope illuminating journey. Keep questioning the narratives of victory in your own life, look very closely at the rulebooks you choose to play by, and we will see you next time as we dive into another incredible piece of source material.